Welcome to Untested Builds, where we make fictional character builds for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Like and subscribe for new builds every week, comment below to suggest your favorite fictional characters, and join the Patreon to vote for your favorite suggestions. Today, we're building a character who's had more gritty reboots than even the Dark Knight himself. Ask anyone over 40 about Aquaman, and they'll remember the butt of every Super Friends joke. As someone who grew up in the 90s, and you'll get some combination of angriest Justice League member with a massive chip on their shoulder towards surface dwellers, rock star hair, and probably less than the optimal number of hands. The most recent theatrical version skirts the line between hot-headed outsider and lovable oath in only a way that the hottest man alive possibly could. But the basic beats are still the same. Arthur Curry, son of a human lighthouse keeper and Atlantean mother, is only superficially half-human since he has all the strengths and abilities of his Atlantean heritage. Notably, breathing underwater, swimming at hypersonic speeds, extreme durability to pressure, heat, and cold to survive at the bottom of the ocean, and apparently anywhere on the surface too, ability to see in total darkness, and the super strength needed to be able to move under the aforementioned hadopelagic pressures. Of course, we're still dealing with superheroes here, so Arthur also has the inexplicable ability to literally control and weaponize water, as well as telepathically communicate with any sea life and command to do his bidding once he accepts his true destiny in true Hero of a Thousand Faces style. The actual plot revolves around the acquisition of a legendary trident and is largely irrelevant to his build. The only difference between Arthur in the beginning of the movie and the end is switching from passively asking help from animals he encounters to actively controlling them remotely. That might be an allegory for something, but this is just a Pathfinder channel, and I'll leave all that to Lindsay Ellis or someone else more qualified. For our goals for this build, we need all the things I literally just listed out because apparently even just baseline Atlanteans have more abilities than Kryptonians under a yellow sun. Second, we're not just building an Atlantean, we're building the Atlantean. Our little brother may be undefeated in the water, but we literally command the seas and anything that calls it home. Lastly, we need to master the trident, a more civilized weapon for a more evolved people, or whatever your particular brand of imperialism is this week. We're kicking this off as a human, since Atlanteans used to be human before they sunk their entire empire and decided to just hang out there and learn to breathe water instead of just moving somewhere else. Specifically a winter touch human, since Arthur just swims around shirtless in the Arctic completely unfazed. We gain cold resistance equal to half our level and treat environmental cold effects as one step less extreme than normal. We use our free ability boost for strength and constitution. The wave touch background gives us boosts we'll take in strength and dexterity, training and athletics, as well as ocean lore, and the underwater marauder skill feat, meaning we aren't flat-footed in water and we don't take the usual penalties to bludgeoning or slashing damage when attacking underwater. For our ancestry feat, Wave Touch Paragon is the last time I'll refer to Aquaman as any brand of touched this build, I promise. We gain a swim speed of 15 feet, which may not sound like much, but I ran some calculations, and that's about 5 miles per hour, assuming 3 strides per round. For reference, Michael Phelps' fastest speed is about 6 miles per hour, and that's with like all the jumping and pushing off walls and stuff, and we're almost there as a base swimming speed. We'll be going quite a bit faster by the end of this build. We've got a guy who wields a hyper-specific weapon. He's also basically indestructible in armor or shirtless. And when someone is finally able to pierce his immaculate flesh, he just shows up in the next scene miraculously healed. That means only one thing. We're building another champion. This time, a Redeemer of Gazra for a boost of strength and the Glimpse of Redemption reaction, which triggers when an enemy within 15 feet attacks an ally also within 15 feet. The enemy gazes into our piercing golden eyes and has to choose whether to simply not deal damage they're trying to inflict, or that ally gains resistance to all incoming damage equal to 2 plus our level, and that enemy becomes enfeebled 2 until its next turn. We also get the Lay on Hands devotion spell to heal a living creature 6 points and granting an AC bonus if they're an ally for 1 round. We also can use this on an undead creature to deal 1d6 of positive damage and give them a -2 penalty to AC for 1 round. For our class feat, Deity's Domain gives us the initial devotion spell for Gazra's water domain. Tidal Surge forces a 42 save on a creature within 60 feet. Failing, they are moved in a direction of our choice 5 feet if they are on land and 10 feet if they are in the water. On a critical fail, they are moved double the amount instead. Champions only get training in 2 skills since they're so dedicated, I guess. So we'll grab Intimidation and Nature. And for our ability boost, we'll increase our strength, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. At level 2, we're taking advantage of our piercing eyes with the Intimidating Glare feat. Now we can use Demoralize actions with a visual trait instead of an auditory one to get across all the language barriers that are inexplicably missing from these movies. Like seriously, this guy somehow speaks Icelandic, Russian, and Italian, but the undersea people who've been isolated from humanity for thousands of years and formed their own independent kingdoms all speak English. Okay. For our class feat, the Beastmaster dedication gives us an animal companion of our choice. The only explicitly aquatic companion on the official list is a shark, but I won't tell anybody if you want something more useful for your campaign. You also get the call companion feature, so you can switch between multiple animal companions, but you won't be using it much, or at all really. Level 3 champions gain a divine ally they can infuse into their weapon, shield, or mount. We're choosing our weapon, meaning we can choose from a list of properties to give to the weapon in addition to gaining the critical specialization effects of said weapon. So it'd probably be a good time to discuss the actual weapon we're going to use. Obviously, Aquaman and Atlantis in general are known for the trident. It also happens to be Gazer's favorite weapon, and in the spirit group, meaning will enfeeble targets on crits. But the tridents Atlanteans use are larger than the description in the Pathfinder core rulebook, and they are clearly two-handed weapons. I think the Ranseur is closer to the weapon we see in the films. Reach and disarm and a bigger damage die are a decent enough trade-off for needing an extra hand. The critical specialization for polearms allows us to move the target 5 feet in a direction of our choice, which fits with the whole martial controller fighting style we're doing with the Redeemer with the water domain. We'll use our skill increase for athletics and grab the breath control feat to hold our breath for 25 times longer than usual. This is usually enough to get past any underwater encounters that might come about in a typical campaign. If your GM is seriously running a large underwater arc for your story, then they should probably be giving the party something to let them actually survive. But we'll grab real water breathing eventually in this build. In the meantime, we also get a +1 circumstance bonus against inhaled threats and critical successes on regular successes on such saves. Now that we can actually survive extended periods in the water, we'll grab terrain expertise for a +1 circumstance bonus to survival checks in aquatic environments. Wild empathy is the real reason we wanted the Beastmaster dedication, allowing us to communicate with animals at a basic level using our diplomacy skill to make an impression and simple requests of them. You'll probably fail a lot starting out since we don't have any diplomacy proficiency, but we'll fix that soon, I promise. Level 5 champions gain weapon expertise for expert proficiency in simple and martial weapons. We'll use our skill increase for expert nature proficiency and grab the clever improviser ancestry feat, allowing us to perform skill actions that require us to be trained even if we're untrained. We also get the untrained improvisation feat for free, meaning we gain a proficiency bonus on unarmed skill checks equal to half our level instead of 0. Once we're level 7, the bonus increases to our level instead. Aquaman's been around for almost 80 years and he's done basically everything you can think of in the comics. Champions don't really get the skill trainings to reflect that, so we're grabbing this instead. We use our ability boost to increase our strength, constitution, wisdom, and charisma. Natural medicine allows us to treat wounds using our nature proficiency instead of medicine, and if we're in a wilderness setting, we can also gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the check. We'll take mature animal companion because the only thing better than a shark that fights for you is a bigger shark that fights for you. Also, our animal companion gets to use 1 strike or stripe round even if we don't spend an action to command it. Level 7 champions gain armor expertise for expert proficiency in all armor types as well as an armor defense. We also get the armor specialization effects of medium and heavy armor we use. We're using scale mail because fish scales obviously, meaning we get resistance to piercing damage equal to 1+ the armor's potency rune value. We also get weapon specialization for an extra 2 flat damage on our weapon attacks. We use our skill increase from Master Athletics and grab the Toughness feat for an additional max HP equal to our level and to reduce the DC of checks to recover from dying to 9+ our dying condition value instead of 10+. The Quick Swim feat doesn't really do much for us since most of the time we're already going to have our 15-foot swim speed, but if for some reason we do have to make a check, swim 5 feet further on a success and 10 feet further than normal on a critical success. The real reason we're grabbing this, however, is because once we're legendary in athletics, our swim speed will become equal to our land speed. It's just easier to grab this now rather than later. The Sunblade Focus spell lets us unleash in a spell attack roll that deals 4d4 fire damage and an additional 4d4 good damage to the target if it is evil, and an additional 4d4 positive damage if the target is undead, increasing to d6s if you're in an area of bright natural sunlight and dealing double damage on a crit. The only problem is that you can only use this if you're using the trident, since we have been using a sword or spear to cast the spell. Of course, if you use Divine Blade to give your Ranseur the shifting property, you could have it become a long spear so you could use this. Or your GM could just cut you some slack because the Ranseur is literally described as a long trident in the core rulebook, and does it really make sense that it's in the polearm group anyway? Whatever. Moving on. Level 9 champions gain lightning reflexes for expert reflex saves, Juggernaut for master fortitude saves and critical success results on regular successes, champion expertise for expert champion class DC and divine spell attack rolls and spell DCs, and divine smites to deal damage equal to our charisma modifier anytime a foe decides to deal damage while under the effects of our glimpse of redemption reaction. We use our skill increase for expert survival proficiency. For our ancestry feat, you already know we're multi-talented. This time to pick up the sorcerer dedication. Elemental sorcerers gain training in intimidation and nature, but we already have those, so instead we'll grab acrobatics and diplomacy. We also can cast 2 primal cantrips. Guidance gives a target a +1 status bonus on an attack roll, perception check, saving throw, or skill check of their choice until the start of their next turn. Then they become immune to further guidance for an hour. No direction is the only conceivable way I can imagine that Arthur knows how to get everywhere he's going. We can immediately determine which direction is north regardless of our current orientation. And once we're level 14, we can use this to instantly determine the location of any familiar location, like your dad's house, or Atlantis, or that random fishing village in Iceland. At level 10, we'll take our ability boost for Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. Basic Sorcerer Spellcasting gives us the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level Primal spell. Fleet Step gives us a 30-foot status bonus to speed for a minute. Aquaman doesn't necessarily run fast per se, but our swim attempts are based on our land speed, so buffs on land carry over into the water. Animal Messenger allows us to coax a tiny animal out of hiding nearby and have it deliver a message of light bulk on our behalf to a location we have in mind. Doesn't have to be a fish, but it'd be a lot more accurate if it was. Aqueous Orb creates a 10-foot diameter sphere of water that can be sustained for up to a minute. When the spell is cast, and each time it's sustained, the sphere can be moved up to 10 feet, trapping creatures who fail a reflex save in its path. Wilderness Spotter makes us even less likely to be caught off guard in the water by allowing us to use our survival skill in place of perception for initiative rolls while in natural aquatic environments. But that's not all, we also get to use survival in place of perception to notice traps, and in place of thievery to disable those traps while we're in an aquatic environment as well. Level 11 Redeemers gain Divine Will for Master Will saves and critical success results on regular successes. Alertness for Expert Perception proficiency. Exalt allows our Glimpse of Redemption to trigger on damage to ourselves as well as all allies within 15 feet at the cost of reducing the amount of damage resistance by 2. We use our skill increase for Master Nature proficiency, and Ancestral Paragon for a level 1 Ancestry feat. Gloomseer finally gets our human eyes closer to Atlantean eyes by granting us low light vision. We'll take the Catfall feat to ignore 10 feet of the height when determining fall damage, which we could ignore completely, but we just need other things more than Acrobatics proficiency. Expert Sorcerer Spellcasting gives a 4th level spell slot, and we finally get the key Atlantean ability. Water Breathing, heightened to 4th level, increases the duration to a full day, meaning we can basically only need to venture to the surface to make our daily preparations and recast the spell on ourselves. Level 13 Champions gain Weapon Mastery for Master Proficiency in Simple and Martial Weapons, and Armor Mastery for Master Proficiency for all levels of armor. We'll increase our Survival Proficiency to Master and grab the Darkseer Ancestry feat for Dark Vision. And finally, 13 levels in, crossing off every item on our list to build a basic Atlantean. Of course, we grab some Arthur Curry specific stuff along the way too, but someone who's more of a caster like Mara or Garth could get there a lot sooner. Level 14 Expert Sorcerer Spellcasters can cast 5th level spells. Control Water allows us to raise or lower a 50 by 50 foot area of water by 10 feet and subjecting any creatures within to the effects of slow, meaning they will have less actions on each of their turns. Environmental Grace gives us protection from environmental heat and cold effects after spending an hour in the respective environment. We'll finally start dedicating some feats to our weapon abilities with the Staff Acrobat dedication, which comes with a bunch of random buffs while we're wielding our Trident or Ransuer. First, we gain a +2 circumstance bonus to our athletics checks to leap or perform a longer high jump and add 5 feet to the height and distance. Second, we can now shove or trip actions even when we don't have a free hand. And lastly, when we succeed on a balance check, we get a crit instead. Level 15 champions gain greater weapon specialization, increasing our base damage on our weapon attacks to 6 since we now have master proficiency in them. We'll use our ability boost to increase our strength, constitution, wisdom, and charisma, and we'll increase our athletics proficiency to legendary, meaning we can finally have a swim speed equal to our land speed, which is even greater now because the fleet feet gives us an extra 5 feet of movement speed. The fleet step up, our measly 25 feet of swimming speed on a crit just got more than doubled to 60. Swimming 20 miles per hour might not sound like much, but 180 feet per round is like adult Brian Dragon speed, so definitely nothing to sneeze at. Level 16 Expert Sorcerer Spellcasters gain a 6th level spell slot, and the title surge we got back way back when at level 1 isn't cutting it for me anymore. I want damage. I want big water damage. So we're heightening Hydraulic Push to level 6 to make a spell attack roll to deal 13d6 of bludgeoning damage to a creature or object and knock it back 5 feet, dealing 16d6 damage and moving them 10 feet on a crit. Rapid Mantle allows us to pull ourselves up whenever we succeed on a grab and edge action, and we can use our considerable athletics proficiency instead of our reflex save when making such checks. The Bullying Staff feat allows us to shove or trip creatures up to 3 sizes larger than us when we're wielding our staff. Level 17 champions gain legendary armor for legendary proficiency in all armor types, champion mastery for master champion DC and divine spell attacks. We'll use our skill increase for expert intimidation and take the bounce back ancestry feat, so once per day when recovering from dying, we don't increase our wounded condition. Intimidating Prowess gives us a +2 circumstance bonus to demoralize and coerce actions thanks to our yoked strength score, provided we're in a situation where our imposing stature can actually play a part in our intimidation check. Whirlwind Stance lets us do that spinny staff thing that apparently only Volko and Arthur knew, but Ornn apparently was taken completely out by. If we shift our Grand Sword into a bow staff, we can enter a stance to gain a +2 circumstance bonus to AC as long as we keep twirling our staff. Level 19 champions gain the Hero's Defiance Devotion spell, which allows you to just straight up not die as a free action, triggered by taking damage from any non-death effect that will reduce your HP to 0. You gain 10d4 plus 20 hit points before the damage goes through, and don't die or fall unconscious if the health gain would keep you and your HP above 0. We use our last skill increase for Expert Diplomacy. We're supposed to be the king after all, and it wouldn't do to just keep walking around with only trained diplomacy proficiency. The fast recovery feat explains why we can take so many flesh wounds on a 3-day period and still have enough meat points to end a war on a planetary scale. Now we recover twice as many hit points and reduce our fatigue condition faster from resting. We also decrease the value of poison and disease conditions whenever we succeed on their respective fortitude saves. Level 20, we'll use our final ability boost to increase our strength, constitution, wisdom, and charisma. The cloud jump feat gives us increased jumping ability by allowing us to use our long jump calculation when performing a high jump and tripling our long jump distance. But what are we doing with all that hang time? Performing a pivot strike, of course. We leap and then strike using our staff. The strike gains a circumstance bonus to damage equal to twice the number of weapon damage dice. Then, whether we land the strike or not, we may also attempt a shove or trip on the target for a decisive victory over your little brother. But now that the battle to assume your throne is over, let's go over the pros and cons of this build. For starters, we've got more martial versatility than most fighters I've built for the channel. A two-handed weapon wielder that can trip, disarm, shove, and parry, and still pump out D10s at reach with a max strength mod is a force to be reckoned with. We're also a beastly tank with 328 HP and up to 45 AC while we're using our ultimate stance. We also have some sweet downtime and exploration opportunities with our animal communication abilities and underwater and aquatic survival abilities. For cons, we kind of have the OG Ranger dichotomy of being very specialized for a particular environment and being useless outside of that. Skipping the survival feats and picking an animal companion that can actually accompany you would go a long way to alleviating those issues. Our spells are also not the greatest, even ignoring the niche effects like water breathing and animal messenger. We only have expert spellcasting on our sorcerer spells, so our combat spells will be a whiff more often than not. But don't let any of that get you down, just use it as fuel for another angsty reboot. The League knows who to call next time they have a water level threat coming, and besides, you have a kingdom to run. Thanks for tuning in to another build. If you want to help choose next month's superhero build, we have a Marvel superhero poll up on the Patreon right now. Patrons get to vote in all of my polls and download character sheets and get their names featured in our videos. If any of that interests you, link is in the description. If that's not your cup of tea, then look no further because I've already got the perfect video for you to watch right here.